I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of my apartment in Manhattan, the city lights flickering like a restless heartbeat below me, when my phone buzzed. A family group photo, newly posted. I didn't have to click on it to know what it was. The caption was already enough to punch me in the chest. The perfect anniversary, with everyone who matters most. Everyone. Except me. I opened it anyway, because sometimes I can't help but touch the bruise just to remind myself it's real. There they were, my parents in the center, beaming. My younger sister Rachel holding up her brand new $25,000 Cartier watch like it was a crown jewel. Everyone squeezed together, arms around each other, champagne glasses raised high. And the one thing missing? Me. It wasn't the first time, but somehow it still burned. Not just the absence in the frame, but the way they could erase me so effortlessly, like I was never part of the story. I set my phone down on the marble counter, fingers brushing the cool surface to steady myself. My silk blouse still carried the faint trace of tonight's perfume, jasmine and vanilla, confidence bottled for late meetings and big decisions. I inhaled deeply, forcing calm. Out there, in the world, I was polished, successful, untouchable. But here, staring at that photo, I was once again the daughter they'd left out. And this time, I knew I couldn't just let it slide. I can still remember the night it all broke apart. I was 19, home for the summer after my freshman year at NYU. Rachel was 16, glowing as always in my parents' eyes, their golden girl. We were sitting around the dining table, mahogany polished to a shine that smelled faintly of lemon oil, when the conversation turned, as it often did, to what Rachel wanted next. A new car. A graduation trip to Paris. Whatever it was, my parents leaned in, nodding, smiling, ready to make it happen. Then came the turn toward me. "And you, Emily?" my mother asked, her voice sweet but already dismissive. "Still chasing that, what is it, journalism?" "It's not chasing," I said softly. "I'm studying it. I want to be a writer." The silence was sharp. My father's fork clinked against his plate. He didn't even look up when he muttered, "Writing isn't a career, it's a hobby. You should think about something practical. Maybe business. Like your uncle." My chest tightened. I tried to steady my voice, but it cracked anyway. "It is practical. It's what I love. It matters to me." Rachel smirked, flipping her hair, her new diamond studs catching the light. "You're so dramatic, Em. Not everything has to matter. Some of us just know how to live." The word stung more than I wanted to admit. My hands trembled as I gripped my water glass, the cold sweat from it dampening my palm. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just overlooked, I was unwanted in the story they were writing for our family. After dinner, I sat on the porch steps, blinking against tears I didn't want anyone to see. That's when my grandmother came out. Unlike my parents, she never dismissed me. She sat beside me, her hand warm and steady over mine. "They don't see you now," she said, her voice low but fierce. "But one day, Emily, they will. Don't beg them for space in their picture. Make your own frame. Fill it with something they can't ignore." She slipped a small silver pen into my hand. It wasn't expensive, but it felt heavy with meaning. "Write your way forward. Promise me that." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. And in that moment, something inside me hardened into resolve. That night, I packed a single suitcase. By morning, I was gone, no announcement, no dramatic farewell. Just the quiet decision that if they wouldn't believe in me, I'd have to believe in myself. Leaving home with nothing but a suitcase and that silver pen felt reckless at 19, but it was the first decision that was truly mine. I rented a cramped studio in Brooklyn, the kind where the radiator hissed all night and the ceiling leaked when it rained. The window overlooked a brick wall, but to me, it was freedom. At first, survival was my only job. I worked late nights waiting tables, the smell of grease and burnt coffee clinging to my hair long after I got home. During the day, I typed out article drafts on my beat-up laptop, pitching them to magazines that didn't even bother to send rejection letters. Each no response felt like another invisible bruise, but I kept writing anyway. The turning point came when I met Diane Keller, my journalism professor turned mentor. Diane was everything my parents weren't: sharp-eyed, unapologetic, and unwilling to let me sell myself short. She read one of my essays after class and said, "Emily, you have something. Don't waste it by waiting for permission. Publish it yourself if you have to, but never stop." So I didn't. I launched a small blog, nothing fancy, just a corner of the internet where I could tell the stories I thought mattered, about women starting businesses in forgotten towns, about single mothers juggling 3 jobs, about resilience that no one else seemed to notice. To my shock, people started reading. First hundreds, then thousands. My words began to ripple outward. The blog caught the eye of a local editor who gave me my first freelance assignment. I'll never forget the rush of holding that magazine with my byline printed in glossy ink. It wasn't much money, but it was proof. Proof I wasn't just dreaming. Still, I kept it quiet. My family assumed I was scraping by, maybe barely making rent, and I let them believe it, posting vague updates on social media. Never a photo of my growing stack of published pieces, never a word about the checks that were slowly adding up. There were nights when I almost gave up. Nights when the isolation gnawed at me, when I sat on the floor of that studio with takeout containers and tears staining my cheeks. But then I'd see the silver pen on my desk, the one my grandmother gave me, and I'd remember her words, "Make your own frame." And slowly I did. By 25, I had enough savings to upgrade from the studio to a light-filled loft with windows that actually opened to the skyline. By 28, I was running my own digital media company, hiring other writers who once heard the same "it's not practical" speech I did. By 30, I had investors calling me, not the other way around. All the while, my parents and sister continued posting photos of their perfect little circle. Cartier watches, vacations in Cabo, family portraits where my absence was just a blank they'd learned to crop out. They didn't know that while they posed, I was building something worth far more than what glittered on Rachel's wrist. Something they couldn't erase this time. The invitation arrived in the most ironic way possible, an email forwarded from Rachel. The subject line read, "Family dinner, be there." No, please. No, we'd love to see you. Just an order, like nothing had changed. Part of me wanted to delete it, but something in me shifted. I was tired of being the invisible daughter, the one cropped out of photos and conversations. Maybe it was time they saw the frame I'd built for myself. So I agreed. The restaurant they picked was one of those sleek, candlelit steakhouses downtown. My family was already seated when I arrived, my parents radiant in their anniversary glow, Rachel practically dangling her Cartier watch in the light like a chandelier. "Emily," my mother said with practiced surprise, as if she hadn't been sure I'd actually come. "Well, you look different." Different. That was one word for it. My tailored navy suit skimmed perfectly against my frame, the silk blouse catching the light with every movement. The hostess had walked me in, addressing me as Miss Clark, and I noticed my father's eyebrows twitch at the formality. We sat, ordered, made the kind of small talk that scratches at the surface without ever touching truth. They asked about my apartment, still assuming I was in some shoebox walk-up, and I let them talk, let them believe. Until Rachel leaned back with her smug smile and said, "So, still chasing that writing hobby?" She twisted her wrist, so the Cartier flashed against the candlelight. Or, "Did you finally realize it doesn't pay?" The words landed like a challenge. And for the first time, I didn't shrink. "No," I said calmly. "It does pay. In fact, it paid for the building you're sitting in right now." They laughed, certain it was a joke. My father even shook his head. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone, opened the property portfolio app, and slid it across the table. On the screen, the ownership documents. The restaurant, along with 3 other prime spots in the city, belonged to my company. Silence. Utter, breathtaking silence. My mother blinked rapidly, like she was trying to compute. Rachel's jaw slackened just enough for me to see the crack in her perfect facade. My father finally found his voice, rough with disbelief. This can't be real." "It's very real," I said. My voice didn't tremble. For once, I had nothing to prove. "The blog you dismissed?" It grew into a media company. That company grew into a brand. And now that brand owns the space, along with a few others. Their eyes darted around, taking in the room differently now. The artwork on the walls, the private wine collection, the elegance that no longer felt like someone else's achievement. It was mine. Emily, my mother whispered, her hand fluttering toward her necklace. Why didn't you ever tell us? Because you never asked, I replied simply. You never wanted to know. You had your picture already framed, and I didn't fit. So, I built my own. Rachel scoffed, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. So, what? You're rich now? That doesn't mean. It means, I cut in, my tone firm but even, that the girl you cropped out of every family photo is the one who signs the checks that keep places like this running. It means your Cartier watch doesn't impress me, Rachel. Not anymore. The table went quiet again, heavy with a truth they couldn't unhear. For the first time in years, I wasn't the outsider. I was the center of the story, and they were the ones scrambling to catch up. The silence at the table stretched so long, I could almost hear the clinking of glasses from other diners, the murmur of waiters moving behind us. For once, my family had no script, no polished smile, no dismissive remark ready. I leaned back in my chair, letting them sit in the weight of it. Then I spoke. I didn't agree to dinner just to shock you. I came because I needed to decide how much space, if any, you'll have in my life going forward. My father frowned, his pride bristling. Emily, don't be ridiculous. You're still family. Am I? I asked, keeping my tone calm. Because from where I'm sitting, you only claim me when it's convenient. When I fit the version of success you approve of. And that's not family, that's performance. My mother reached for my hand, but I didn't let her take it. What do you want from us? She whispered. I took a breath, steady and deliberate. Not money, not approval, but if you want a place in my world, there are conditions. I turned to Rachel first. Stop measuring your worth by what sparkles on your wrist. If you want to impress me, do something real. Pursue a dream that scares you. Build something that doesn't depend on mom and dad's checkbook. Her face flushed crimson, and for once, she had no comeback. Then to my father. You've spent years tearing down anything that didn't fit your definition of practical. If you want me in your life, you'll stop dismissing what you don't understand. Learn to listen. Not to respond, not to correct, just to hear. He bristled, but didn't argue. Finally, I looked at my mother. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. You've stood by silently while I was erased from photos, conversations, memories. If you want to know me now, you'll have to find your voice. Protect me when I'm not in the room, just like you protect Rachel. No more silence. The words hung in the air, heavier than any toast or blessing that table had ever heard. I care about all of you, I added softer now. But I won't bend to old patterns. If you want to be in my frame, it's on my terms. Respect. Honesty. Growth. Otherwise, I picked up my napkin, folded it neatly, and placed it on the table. I'll keep living without you. And trust me, I'll be just fine. For a moment, no one moved. My father's jaw was tight, my mother's shoulders trembling, Rachel staring at her untouched steak. And then, quietly, my mother nodded. We'll try, she said, her voice breaking. It wasn't a promise I fully believed yet, but it was the first time they hadn't brushed me aside. The power had shifted, and this time, it was mine to keep. The weeks after that dinner felt strange, almost fragile, like stepping onto ice that might crack beneath me. For the first time in years, my parents reached out, not with demands or backhanded comments, but with questions. Real ones. My father called to ask what books I was reading. My mother sent texts about articles she'd seen with my byline, even if she didn't fully understand them. And Rachel was slower to thaw, but I noticed she stopped flashing that Cartier watch in every photo. I didn't expect perfection. I only wanted effort. And for the first time, I could see it. One Saturday afternoon, I sat in my office, walls lined with framed magazine covers, the view of the city stretching wide beyond the glass. My grandmother's silver pen rested in its case on my desk. I picked it up, the metal cool and familiar against my fingers. That pen had carried me through nights of doubt, through stories no one believed in but me. It was more than an object. It was a promise. I thought back to that night on the porch when she told me to make my own frame. She'd been right. I had built it piece by piece, word by word, until it was too strong to be ignored. And now, for the first time, my family was trying to step into it, not as the ones who erased me, but as people willing to learn who I had become. We weren't healed, not yet. But there was movement. There was possibility. And that was enough. I set the pen back down, smiling softly to myself. The city hummed outside, alive with 1,000 stories waiting to be written. And as I reached for my notebook, I whispered the words I wished my grandmother could still hear. I finally made my own frame. And this time, I'm the one who decides who belongs in it.